Hi, my name is Moroni Morrison, and I'm giving a presentation on using cell phones properly. Um, some things we're going to be covering in here, I got off a website which I listed on my PowerPoint slide, which I am including with this video as to where I got most of my information from. So let's dive in. Using cell phones properly. There's going to be times when it's appropriate to use cell phones and times when it's not. We're going to talk a little bit about both of those. And we're also going to look a little bit at times in a business setting when it's appropriate and times in a personal life when it's appropriate and inappropriate. So the first thing I have is let's understand what proper use means. Looking in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary, or on their website, their online version, if we look up the word etiquette, it means the conduct or procedure required by good breeding or prescribed by authority to be observed in social or official life. If we take that definition and we apply it to cell phones, I think the proper understanding definition of that we can get about cell phone etiquette means the proper way to use a cell phone in a social or business setting. So if we take a look at a business setting first, when is it okay to use a cell phone at work or in a business setting? Number one, understand your employer's guidelines for using cell phones. If they allow you to have a cell phone, then definitely have one, because they'll probably want you to have one to use, or sometimes they often give you one to use. And understand the proper guidelines for using it there. Number one, if you're taking a business-related call, if it's related to work, if it's an associate's trying to get a hold of you to go over a project or some figures, you're going to need to be able to answer your phone call. It's important to have it and to have it on you. Next, if your boss is calling you, if he wants to get a hold of you to come to his office or to discuss some issues with you about work, you're going to need to have your phone on you. That's probably the number one reason why they give you one, is so that those in authority above you can get a hold of you to talk to you about different projects and things. Number three I have on a PowerPoint slide is when the call is directly related to the job at hand. If you're working with somebody on a project and they call you to try to get a hold of you if they're in another office or somewhere else picking up supplies for your project, then you need to be able to discuss the issues with each other, and they need to be able to get a hold of you for those things. So those are a couple guidelines as to when to use your cell phone in work. Let's take a couple, or look at a couple ideas and guidelines for not using it. Number one, if you're in a conversation with somebody else, with your boss, most in particular, and also associates, don't answer your phone if you're in the middle of a conversation. It's very rude and inappropriate. Number two, if you're in a meeting, turn your cell phone off or put it on silence, and make sure you don't look at your texts and stuff while you're in a business meeting. It's very rude and inappropriate. A good way to understand that is if you're giving a demonstration, you don't want other people kind of ignoring you or not paying attention by texting on their phones or taking phone calls or having their phones going off. It's very distracting. The next one to take a look at is if it's not work-related, and you know that it's not. If your buddy says, hey, I'll call you in 15 minutes about football or something, maybe answer the phone, but say, hey, let's talk about this at our break, or let's talk about it at lunch. It's not a good time to talk about it right now because we got to work on our project or whatever, or I'm working. Next, if you're with a customer and you're talking to a customer and working with the customer, don't take cell phone calls. Very rude to the customer. It's going to drive them away, and remember, customers are what drive our businesses. Next, if it's a personal call, if you know it's a personal call and someone's trying to get a hold of you just to shoot the breeze or to talk about things that aren't related to work, then don't take those kind of phone calls. It's inappropriate and it can get you in trouble. Next is the main overall thing is to understand if they even let you use cell phones at work. If they don't, then get a thorough understanding of why they don't and the reasons they don't, and just either don't bring it with you to work, or leave it in your car and turn it off. Check it at lunch. If you need to make personal phone calls, save it for times for breaks or lunches. And that's the things to go over for business, and times to and when not to. Next thing we're going to look at is personal use. Hopefully I included two main guidelines in these slides that should help you get a good understanding. If you can at least remember just these two, you don't have to remember the lists that I included, but remember these two guidelines, and this should give you a good understanding of when to and when not to use a cell phone. Number one is keeping others in mind. Number two is remember your objective. So let's take a look at number one and get some better understanding about it. Keeping others in mind kind of gives you a general understanding of the way you would feel in the same situation if someone else did it to you. So, how many times have you been either in the store or at work, and you're kind of doing something, and somebody else comes up next to you, and they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And you turn to answer them, and you're like, "Hey, I'm doing good," and then you realize they're on the phone with somebody else. It's kind of embarrassing, and it's kind of rude. So, when you're on the cell phone, don't go next to people and talk loud and be obnoxious. Keep your voice low and try to do it in a private setting to where you're not disturbing other people or including them in your conversation when you shouldn't be. Next, if you're in a movie or you're at a wedding or you're in a classroom, don't have your phone on. Don't be texting. Don't be talking. I've been in movies before where people are sitting in front of me and texting, and it just distracts me from the movie, and it's very rude and bad manners. So please remember not to do that to others. Next, it helps us remember to stay focused on the people we're with. If we keep them in mind, we realize, hey, the conversation that I'm having with the person that I'm with is certainly probably a lot more important than the conversation I could be having on the phone. So remember that. It's very good manners, and it's not rude to do that. And just remember to put people who are with you first before people who are not. Next, if we look at number 2 that I said, remembering our objectives. If you can remember the reason why you're somewhere or with someone, it helps you to remember proper time to use your cell phone. If you're going to a restaurant, you don't go there to talk on the phone. You're going there to eat. And especially if you're with other people, you're going there to visit and to socialize. And it's rude to be on the phone the whole time. And it's also rude to your waiters or waitresses if you're on the phone and they're trying to take your order. They got jobs to do. They got to get done, and you're busy talking on the phone. Next, it helps us to remember to focus on the people we're with. Our objective for hanging out with people or spending time with them is to visit with them and talk and to socialize, and not to sit on our phone or text and talk with other people. The other thing with remembering our objective, it helps us screen our phone calls a little better. If we remember the reason why we're in a particular setting, we can screen our calls and look at them and realize, is this important enough to take? Should I take the call later? Should I call them back later? And that should help you remember to screen your phone calls quite a bit better. And next, it helps us remember to not text when we're carrying on conversations with other people. I've been in numerous conversations where somebody's texting at the same time I'm talking, and I realize, they're probably not paying attention. And sometimes I've even texted it and said really weird things, and they're just shaking their head, yeah. And I'm like, you aren't listening at all. So try to remember not to do that. Don't multitask with texting and talking to people in person at the same time. So these are basically some brief points that I brought up. I included a power slide. I included the information as to where I got all this information from, and hopefully it helps you understand the proper etiquette for using a cell phone. Thank you.